So, because of last week's unsuccessful weekend, I decided to give it another go. Although this time I went one model up and got the Kobra 3. Now, I've seen a bunch of videos and reviews, so I don't think I'm going to blow anybody's mind with new information. I see this as my last video, just novice at 3D printing, looking to enjoy a new hobby. Same as usual. And just like last time, I'm just going to glance over the assembly instructions. There's just not a lot to it. Any cubic includes a fairly simple guide on how to do it, and spending too much time just doesn't add anything to the video. I will say this, the Kobra 3 model has more bolts to install, but that doesn't really make it any difficult. Righty tighty, install some cables, and bingo bango, you're pretty much done. What? After that, the leveling and calibration is pretty simple as well. But once you figure that out, you're ready for your first print. It was at this moment that I became anxious to see what happens. After all, this was where things went south last time. But despite that, the printer started, and by the time it was finished, I had a pretty cool bottle cap opener shark, which is neat, but I don't drink, so now that the test print is out of the way, I can get wild printing whatever dumb thing I want. One of the things I did notice are the three choices used to print: Quiet, Standard, and Sport. Although the display doesn't detail what that is, basically assume that's in regard to the print speed. Since I'm not running a print shop, I kept everything pretty much on standard mode, and for the most part, everything worked out fairly alright. I'll touch on that later. My first set of prints included this cool Eevee. It's all one colors because that's what came with the machine. But I was amazed that it was able to stand on its own 4 legs. The next print was a little more flexible, and I'm going to note a couple things I enjoy about this printer. Once you're ready to print, it's mostly hands off. The Kobra 3 can level itself between each print, and the nozzle wipes itself clean before it begins. I will say you should probably keep an eye on it as soon as it starts, because after all, it's not going to take a big error to ruin an entire print. But here it is, my chunky, tiny Toothless. He is chunky, he is small, he doesn't afraid of anything, and I love it completely.
It's adorable.
Now that
it's
these
so
three first prints are out of the way, I'll say that things went fairly well, for the most part. And this only took the better part of one night, from setup to print. But I also wanted to share some more complicated prints, or at the very least, larger prints, which took way more time. Okay, this is the first rather large print that I've started, and it is a functionally articulated axolotl. Honestly, it's low-key kind of adorable, and I'm surprised that it's so flexible, but there are some imperfections, and we're going to use the spotlight here to show them off. If you notice, there's some holes in his head, and I'm pretty sure they're small enough to get plugged up by paint or anything special, but you're going to see some right here, here, here. I'm not saying too terrible, the rest of it looks really good. Nothing as bad as that one little section. So, I mean, I would consider this an absolute win. Plus, he's smiling. Or she's smiling. I'm not sure with axolotls. But honestly, it's low-key kind of adorable, and I like it. Let's move on to the biggest thing I've printed so far. This right here has taken up the majority of the time that I've used the print, and it is a light box. I've had to do this on several layers. The box itself took a full day because I used it on the quiet mode. I actually had to jump into the app because the way it was printing right off the bat, it wouldn't come out right. So going into the app was actually very simple. It allowed me to bring up the file itself, kind of reorientate all of this, because the way it was printing at first, the bottom would kind of mess up, so I had to flip it on its axis. When I started this from the top started printing from the top down, everything came out super smooth. I also had to slow down the print speed from standard to quiet, just to make sure that everything came out alright. I'm glad I did that because I didn't have any issues. I tried the other method about 3 different times, and it would not take right. Ultimately, we ended up with this, and I have the light off because I'm going to show off what it looks like with this standard DeWalt light, because I don't have a different type of light right now. I will probably ultimately buy a light for this that looks a little better, but if you see it from afar, it looks really good. Each is its own different layer. You have the foreground right here, you have the actual mermaid, you have a rock in the background, and then you have the moon and the stars, and everything looks really good from afar. You even have the boat way off in the distance here, and everything looks really good. My favorite little detail is that turtle, because if you know me, you know I like the turtle. I just like the way it dances. It's so funny. And to talk about how this printer came out as a whole, like I said, I slowed down the printing for the actual box. If I'd have kept it in standard, it would have taken 12 hours, but because I slowed it down so that it would take its time and I wouldn't have to start over, because every time I started over, it just adds to the mess. I slowed it down and it came out perfect. You could hardly see the actual layers. The only way you could actually see them is if you shined a light to it. And let's see if we can get this. See, now you see them. but it's hardly noticeable even when I'm standing right here in better lighting. Everything, like I said, was printed in layers. The whole, you could see the different lines and whatnot. I kind of wish I tried to slow it down with these prints also, but overall the quality is top notch. Honestly, I'm very happy with my purchase. I'm glad I went with this one. I don't have any issues to date. I'm probably gonna buy some of the accessories to go with it. If you're wondering what happened to the Ace Pro, it's still shipping, it's in back order. I'm okay with this for now because it's not a huge deal for me. I'm not turning this into a business. If I was, I think I might have gone with this one, but there's so much of 3D printing that I'm just doing this as a hobby to build things on the side. It's nothing to make any money. I honestly am happy with my purchase. This turned out a lot better than the Kobra 2. Happy I went with this one. I kind of wish I got the Ace to mess around with it at first. I'll mess around with it later when it comes in, but I don't have any regrets. I think some of the things that I've made are really cool. I think that Eevee is cool. I never expected the articulated legs to come out on it. I think the axolotl is adorable. So is the chunky toothless because that's just cute. What's really cool is that I could paint these later, but when I get the actual model, the Ace Pro, I'll be able to print it in color so I won't have to. I also really like the way that little mermaid turned out. If you stayed until the end, thanks for watching. Have a great day. I'll see you next time, and we'll see what else we can get around with doing with this 3D printer. She looks like a loaf of bread.